Hey, welcome back. This is Crypto Chris James here to talk about Battlefield 2042. It is finally here. I'm going to give you a first take on what I think so far. Let's get into it. So, should you buy Battlefield 2042? Overall, I would say yes. The game is actually incredibly fun. It's a little bit of a breath of fresh air compared to Call of Duty, which has been, taking over the space so far. And I definitely think that it's going to be able to compete. I really think the game has a lot of potential. There's a lot of directions they can really take it. I do feel like it's kind of lacking in the content space, which I'll get into later, but I do see a lot of room for the game to grow, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to, and I definitely believe there's going to be a lot more coming down the line. I don't think that the game that's been released is by any means the final version, so I'm really excited to just see where the game's going to be heading in the future. One thing that I really admire about this game is I could tell they took a lot of risks. I think the specialists, adding that into the gameplay was an interesting choice. I do think there might need to be some reworking with it, which I'll get into later, but I can admire them for giving that a shot, as well as drones. I think drones is something that's very interesting that they kind of played around with, like in Battlefield 4, that I feel like is really coming into fruition in this game. Like, I think that's a really neat addition. The other game types such as Portal and Hazard Zone, I haven't tried them yet. They do look interesting, they look fun, and I really can't wait to try them out. And my number one favorite thing that they added to this game is definitely the cross menu. That thing is so perfect, and it's like, it makes me wish that other Battlefields had it. That's how useful and how awesome it is. So now let me go ahead and get into the pros for this game, because the very first one on my list is the cross menu. I love the way that the cross menu kind of changes up gameplay on the fly. That's something that's never really been done before in any of the other Battlefields. I think the closest thing is to where you can just pick up someone else's entire kit off the ground, but now being able to have one gun that you might rely on, but be able to customize it and change it on the whim for any particular situation you find yourself in, to me is amazing. Like, now I can't wait to find myself in a situation where I might be going loud, and now I could put a suppressor on and go quiet, and then like remove it and go loud again. That's something that will be awesome. I also can't wait to be using, say, like a sniper rifle and switch from a long range to a close range or a short range scope. That's something that would be like really cool. So I'm just really excited to continue playing with that, continuing to find myself in situations where that's going to be like one of the things that saves me, or one of the things that just completely changes up the dynamic of the game. On top of the dynamics of the game, I really think that the mechanics are great now. One of the things that I didn't really care for, aside from the fact that they went to like the old wars, like World War I and World War II with Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, was I really didn't like the mechanics. I just felt like the mechanics didn't feel right. And this is also my first time playing on PC, playing a Battlefield like on PC with a mouse and keyboard. That might make a difference, but I really think that just the mechanics just feel really, really good. They're really smooth. The time to kill is very reasonable. Obviously, it's not as fast as Call of Duty, but it's still pretty quick compared to like other Battlefields even. And it's like very satisfying when you get a kill, so that's something that I'm really enjoying about the game, is just the mechanics itself. One thing that I think I was worried about that I think they did really well was just maintaining all the things that keep Battlefield great. It's still hectic. There's still a lot of opportunities for teamwork and like having squads that balance each other out, which it could kind of get tricky when it comes to the specialists, which once again I'll get to later. But I still feel like a lot of the main key things about Battlefield that make it Battlefield are still there, and that's something that I was somewhat worried about, but I think it ends up working out. I think 128 players is perfect. This might be my first time playing with that many players. I don't know if they really did it on console that often. If they did, then I mean, I guess this doesn't matter, but playing on PC for the first time, I'm just noticing that 128 players is like the sweet spot. It like perfectly fills out the maps. It like perfectly balances the teams. I just think it's great. Now, I haven't played enough to really like judge this 100%, but I'm gonna go on record now and say that this might have some of the best vehicle gameplay ever. I could really tell that some of the maps were made for vehicles. I mean, usually with Battlefield, they have a lot of maps that are just made for vehicle gameplay. But I really feel like this is going to be the best version of it that we've seen, at least in a long time, definitely since like Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4. I really enjoy the way you can call in the vehicles. I haven't used it yet, but just the fact that you can do that makes the dynamic of the game so unique already. And I really feel like the movement of the vehicles is the most realistic that it's ever been in any Battlefield. There were times, especially in like Battlefield 3, where you would like shoot a rocket at a car and it just stops, and it works, but it just felt, you know, lackluster. It didn't have like the kind of Hollywood explosion type of thing you would expect, as opposed to this time when I saw a rocket hit a car and the car actually like spun out like fishtailed, and I thought that was amazing. I had never seen that before in a Battlefield. So that's one thing that I think is gonna really make it stand out. And for my last pro, I will say that even though I kind of had some problems with the specialists, I do think that the specialists do a good job of adding more personality to the game. Like, you can make the argument in the older Battlefields that just having kind of the same operators for every class was, you know, it kind of could make it boring, and that's understandable, although that's not the purpose of the game. But having the operators, or rather having the specialists kind of like have their own sayings and phrases and personalities, is like the little bit of icing on the cake that I do kind of enjoy about the specialists, and I do think that can make the game stand out a little bit more. So after bringing up the specialist, this is actually probably a good time for me to switch it to my cons, because at first I didn't have the specialist as like the top con on my list, but since I mentioned it, I'm gonna go ahead and move it up because I do have a problem with the specialist, and it might just take some getting used to because I haven't played the game enough to have a 100% solid opinion. But just off of what I've done so far versus all of my experience playing Battlefield up to now, I do feel like the specialists don't necessarily fit the structure of Battlefield. Two of the things that really make Battlefield stand out compared to any other first-person shooter, of course, first of all, is going to be the size of the maps and the size of the teams. And then second of all, in my opinion, is the strategy that's required to win based on the classes that you choose to have on the field. Perfect example, one of the biggest issues in like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 was having a team full of snipers. When you have a team full of snipers, it makes no sense. There's really no way to push. Everybody's just sitting back sniping. It makes it boring. And snipers, really, you don't need to have more than one on your team because they serve a very specific purpose, especially with their gadgets. But when you have like 4 or 5, there's just really no way to progress effectively. You have to have a support, an assault, an engineer or two. That's how you have a well-balanced team. So now that we have these specialists, and these specialists have their own kind of like specific gadgets or specific uses that aren't dependent on the gun, you could definitely see a potential to where the game will get stale because everybody is running 1 or 2 specialists and 1 or 2 guns, which the gun problem is also something I'll talk about in a minute. But this was an issue that occurred in another Battlefield game. I want to say it was Battlefield 3. It might have been Bad Company 2 as well, where everybody was running the same gun and the same class because it really didn't matter. And with those games, it was based because of the maps. Like, some of the maps were just terrible, and so all you needed was one class and one gun and you could dominate. I think it was the support class. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think the support classes, LMGs, were just overpowered, and so that's all you needed and you could win every time. This game with the specialist, I feel like it has a potential to go down that same path. With enough time, when people figure out which specialist might be maybe not OP, but might be just the most well-rounded for every map, and then the gun that might be the most well-rounded for every map, you could definitely see everyone just using those 2 setups and nothing else and wiping through the game, and that pretty much literally defeats the purpose of Battlefield. Obviously, with this specialist con, we're just gonna have to see where it goes. There's plenty of opportunities for them to add new specialists, for them to take specialists out, for them to switch their abilities around, although that's probably unlikely, but still, it's too early to tell. But as of right now, I'm just able to predict the future, probably because I've played other Battlefields extensively, and I could just definitely see this going down that rabbit hole. Another con that I'll say, which honestly isn't a big deal, is just bugs. Of course, you're going to have bugs at launch. There's really no way around it. I know, I'm a software engineer, so it's just one of those things that you're going to run into. It does suck that so far I can't play Conquest because, Conquest is like the bread and butter of Battlefield. And I've played one Conquest game so far because of this bug. I think a lot of you have probably ran into it. It says something about persistent data, and it's just made it difficult to even get into a game. So I'm pretty sure at some point a lot of these bugs are going to get worked out, so it's not that big a deal. I completely understand. The fact that I could at least get into a game, it makes me understand that they'll just have to be figuring it out as time goes on. So for this con, I would probably say it's the biggest because it looks like there's not enough guns. And like I said, it's way too early to tell. We can definitely see ourselves in a position where they're just going to add guns as time goes on, just like Call of Duty is. And I'm not too upset with that as long as, there's not a huge paywall or a huge progression wall in the way to unlock it. But I'm really skeptical about the lack of guns. I really feel like you need more than 2 LMGs to really have an actual support class that makes sense. That's not enough LMGs to pick from. So that's something that, once again, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But as of right now, that's a big no-no to me, is just how little guns there are. Another con for me is definitely poorly designed maps. I just spoke about how having a poorly designed map can lead to these specialist issues where everybody just picks the same thing because the map doesn't demand you do anything else. So far I've only ran into one map that I thought was really poorly designed. There was just no cover whatsoever. There was a huge building in the beginning that made it easy for the enemy to just get on the building, and so now they're practically spawn camping. And when you have these issues, day one of the launch is super underwhelming for the game. I don't really know how that could be fixed. If they do have a way to kind of switch up the maps on the fly, that would be amazing, because some of these maps probably do need to be retuned. And now that player data is coming in, I'm sure they might be able to see that. But as long as they can really change up some of the dynamics of the maps, I think that this game will be bar none, probably one of the best games to play right now. But take it from me, as someone that's just played countless Battlefield games, there's nothing worse in Battlefield than a map that's not designed well. It's literally the foundation of the game. Is huge sandbox maps that are actually very well balanced. It's not like Call of Duty where you can have a map that's just kind of whatever, and then sometimes it's balanced, sometimes it's not. It just kind of depends on the day and the situation in the game. With Battlefield, you have an unbalanced map, you're automatically at a disadvantage from the jump. There's almost no contest. That's just something that I've learned. So I really hope that, and once again, they also might be adding maps over time as well. I mean, they've done that plenty of times over the past couple of games. So I'm sure there'll be more maps that come out. But the maps that are out right now, there's a couple that I like, but there's a couple that are kind of I don't know, I think are really lackluster, and I really feel like they didn't put enough thought into it. So we'll just have to see, I guess. So for my last con, and this might just be personal for me, a lot of people may not care, but and as of right now, I haven't seen it, but where's the campaign? They have Michael K. Williams, rest in peace. He's doing an amazing job. I want to play as him, and not just in the multiplayer, in the game. There's a story. They did a short film. I was expecting a campaign, but I don't see one unless I just haven't clicked through the menus enough, because I haven't really had the time. But if there's no campaign, that's just going to be a huge disappointment for me, because I was really hoping there would be something. I don't care if it's 3, 4 hours, 5 hours, but and also the world that they built and the story that they have, just as far as the notepads, this is such an interesting concept. But if there's no campaign, it's almost what's the point? It's still just Battlefield, and I'm still just hopping in shooting people, but there's no real purpose, or there's no world driving behind that. It's just something that's kind of disappointing to me. But like I said, I might have to just click around, play around some more and see, because I might be missing it. But if there's no campaign, that's really disappointing for me. But so far, I really like the game. I think it's fun. I think it has potential, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So those are my pros and cons. That's how I feel about it after the first time that I played it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I'll probably do another one of these a week from now, maybe a month from now, and maybe also sometime next year, just to kind of update everybody on what's going on. But as of right now, I'll definitely continue to play it and see where it goes. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day. Peace out.